Hey, hello, and hi, and welcome to Northwest Vikings Echoes podcast. I am Junior Noah Marsh.
And I'm Junior Alana Talaha.
This is our first ever episode of Northwest Viking Echoes, where we spotlight one of the students that walk the halls with you every day.
Today, we have a special guest here with us. It's sophomore Anna Jane. She's here to talk with us.
Hi.
We are very excited to do this with you. Today's episode's theme is standing up for yourself. All right, Anna, tell us about yourself. What do you want people to know about you? What makes you so special?
Well, I'm a sophomore. I love to read. I do speech and debate. I'm hoping to get my poetry book published sometime in the next year. But I do want to let everyone know I don't think I'm special. Actually, I think I'm pretty freaking basic, pretty average.
No. Everyone's special. You said poetry book. What? Do you have a name for that yet? Or
I don't have a name for it yet, but I write a lot about like stuff that happens to people as kids to like try to talk to the younger version of people, so I'm thinking something along those lines.
Younger version of people. That's super, super
That's
cool.
like
I'm hoping
poetic.
to
I like
actually
that.
write songs with it someday. I know you said you do that.
I do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to do that.
That's
Yeah.
super fun. That would be amazing. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm sure you'd kill at it. So, talking about your hobbies, if that is one of your hobbies, is that your favorite one? If not, what is the hobby that makes you the most happy?
I think it would be speech and debate. I took the class last year, like immediately, like I loved it so much. Miss Klein, who teaches the class, recommended me for the club. Now I'm in the club, I do these tournaments. And the reason that I love it, the most basic answer to that would be, it helps you get confidence. It really does. The thing that I actually do love about it, and the most truthful thing I can say here is, I love that it challenges me. Like, I feel like it kind of gives you this high because you're in front of all these people and the spotlight is on you. I feel like it really puts you out there and really challenges you. So I love kind of like the high that it gives you.
I love that. Do you have any stage fright now?
No, like this is going to sound so weird. A lot of people do have stage fright. I'm actually really shocked at the fact that I don't. Like, I really love being on stage. I love giving speeches and stuff. And all my friends joke that I would just stand there and argue with the wall. I would talk even if no one was listening anyway. So it's perfect. Yeah.
I can completely agree with that. Being able to be on stage. It's just an exciting thing. It's just an exciting thing. It's super, super cool.
So we all found that we like writing in common, and now we're all just besties. But we wanted to know what you think, like, a day in your life. How is that, like, similar to people, but how would you say it's different?
So most people do know this about me, but I'm legally blind, which means that I have, special equipment that I have to carry around the school. So that's a little bit different. Most people don't have to do that. And I take extra classes to learn how to use technology differently, different tools, because I have been like rapidly losing my vision in the past couple years. And so I used to be able to see a lot more, but since I would say maybe 7th or 8th grade, it's just been rapidly declining. So that's kind of been something I have to get used to, and that's probably how my day is a little bit different.
Where would you use the equipment? Like, in what aspects do you have to use it, or where would you get it from?
Well, I get the equipment from the school system. The way that I use it, it's just like magnifiers, like a CCTV almost, just one that you would put on the desk. I use that. I use other things like on computers and phones, I use screen readers, like it just reads the entire thing to you. And for that, you have to like almost learn a whole new language for each, because there's like keyboard commands. Like each thing to do on the computer is a whole different like set of keys. So it's just like you have to just take extra classes to learn all of that stuff.
All of that seems like, it could be a bit of a challenge, but putting it all together, what do you think the biggest challenge? We can put it into past and present, like biggest challenge that has been and biggest challenge currently.
I want you to imagine like coming to school completely blindfolded. And I want you to like imagine all the stuff that would come with that. Because when you asked that question, so many different things like came to my mind. And it's so hard to like sit here and tell you one thing that has been the most, challenging. I think definitely one really challenging thing about school is I want to be able to see all the cute guys, but I can't see any. Can't see any of them.
Wait.
Dang.
That's actually actually tragic.
That was funny. That was really funny. I love that.
No, but in all seriousness, I'm like, all my friends will tell you I'm a huge risk taker, huge optimist, and I think you kind of have to be when you're kind of going through what I have been through. And a lot of people actually, go through worse. So you kind of just have to look at it like, you take the small wins. I would definitely say the hardest out of all of it has been accepting the fact that it's happening because, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this because when you're going through something hard, you almost have the mindset like, oh, if I pretend that this isn't happening, then that means it'll just go away. Like, I won't have to deal with it. It won't really be happening. And I've tried to do that for probably like 3-4 years, pretend that none of it is actually happening. But, one day you kind of wake up and you realize this is happening, and I can either be ready for it or I can just let it happen and do nothing about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we were kind of talking earlier, before we started recording, and you were saying stuff like, having to stand up for yourself, stepping up. And was that part of it, like having to come to acceptance with it, like stepping up for yourself, coming to terms with the fact of it is? You said stuff like, don't be a doormat. What do you think people's biggest mistake is when they get stepped on and don't choose to, stand up for themselves?
I think that's such a loaded question because, like, the first, a couple things I want to say to that, like, I feel like when people hear the phrase, like, stand up for yourself, they think of, like, bullying. And, of course, it applies there, but, like, it goes to so many other things in friendships and in, like, relationships. Like, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to, like, settling for things that we should have, like, ran from. So the first thing I wanted to say is, like, it doesn't just apply there. The second thing I want to say to your question, why, what's people's biggest mistake? Like I said earlier, you want to pretend that things aren't happening to you. And I think in your head, what's kind of going through it is, like, if I pretend it isn't happening, then other people aren't going to know that it's happening. And if they do and they say something about it, you're kind of so in denial that you kind of shut down and you don't really realize that you should be standing up for yourself in the way that you should acknowledge, like, what's happening to you and what's happening in your life. Because,
like, you just brush it off.
You brush it off because you haven't even come to terms with it.
You
don't feel strong enough to talk about it. So how could you stand up for yourself if you don't even feel strong enough to be able to accept it about yourself?
Yeah, because you don't even know what you're standing up for. Because you just, like,
I really like that you said that. You don't even know what you're standing up for. I feel like in high school, that's something that a lot of people go through. Like, this huge period of, like, oh, who am I? What am I even standing up for? What am I even here for? You know what I mean?
And that sounds cheesy, but it's like, it's so true. Like, you have to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, or else there's no point to it.
Yeah.
Kind of going after that, what would you suggest to improve physically, mentally, people to overcome that mindset of...
What's your advice?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people say all this stuff, fake it till you make it. And I don't think that's necessarily bad advice, but I think that the thing that's actually going to help you fake it till you make it is to give yourself something to be confident about, because you could be confident, but you can't build that until you have something to, like, base it off of, because everyone says, believe in yourself. But where is that belief coming from? Because have you proved to yourself that you can do the things that you want to do? I think that it comes from kind of taking risks, and, I feel like taking risks is just, like, such a huge thing, like, loaded thing for people. It just means do tiny things each day that your, like, past self would think were, like, absolutely insane. Like, that's kind of what I'm doing in here, because, like, last year I couldn't even, like, go up to someone and, like, talk to them, like, let alone sit on a podcast and, like, tell the whole school how
now
I'm
you're talking
doing
to a whole
live.
school.
Oh yeah, that's a big improvement.
Yeah. So I think the way to get past that is to do the most like unimaginably crazy things
Yeah.
just to prove to yourself that you can.
What's something that you've done? Like this podcast, or what's your big like, thing?
I did this podcast. I've given speeches in front of like schools and things like that, in front of like so many people. I remember I gave a speech in front of, I think, like 500 people at this thing I went to back in December of last year. Things like that. And I really wasn't into coding or any of that. I'm still not really into it, but I learned how to do it just to prove to myself that I could learn how to do it. You know, just do things just to prove that you can. Do yourself, not to anyone else, just for yourself.
Was there a moment in your life where you like a snap moment, like where you're like, oh, that's it. I need to turn around. I'm going to put my foot down and I'm going to start doing this.
There's this quote. I'm really obsessed with this one show on Netflix. It's called The Good Place.
Ooh.
It's about how people like become better people and eventually like go to like heaven. And I kind of thought of like one of the quotes that you said, because you were talking about, was there like a turnaround moment in your life? I think it was one of the characters had said, what gives me my hope isn't if you're good or bad, because each human is a little bit good and a little bit bad at the same time, but it's whether they're trying to be 1% better every day. And I think that's also what made me realize, because I used to have like a huge perfection problem also. I talk about this a lot, but it's like, if I used to beat myself up all the time, like if you aren't doing everything in your power all the time, then you're basically going down that like rabbit hole again. And I think that's something you really have to realize. It doesn't really matter if you're completely good, or it's not black and white. As long as you realize that even if you had a bad day, if you're trying to be like 1% better, that's enough.
Yeah, like
That's
putting in
awesome.
the effort.
I mean, I think that's a great place to end, just as well as any other place
Thank
would
you
be.
so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you
us.
for having me on here.
We've loved meeting you.
You're
And
awesome.
we hope you guys tune in again to the Northwest Viking Echoes podcast.
Currently, I think we're trying to get an episode out like once a month, but I'm not completely sure. Just keep an eye out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye, so long, and sayonara.